Alrighty, well, that's all the time we have today, folks. Thanks for listening to another great episode of Trekosophy. I'd like to thank our hosts, our technical guru, Chris McGee.
I have nothing clever to say.
And our resident philosopher, Ben McLean.
I think, therefore, it's over.
And the person that makes us all look like we have no clue what we're doing, Ash Hume.
Who says I've got a clue?
And I am Bill Allen, a.k.a. the guy in the red shirt, saying thank you and good night.
Okay, now that we have the ending recorded, we still need to actually do the episode.
Yeah, I guess you're right.
That's going to totally confuse everyone who listens.
They're going to be like, our audience
but
is
that's
used to
what
us
we
by
do
now.
best.
They're going to be like, what?
Like they are every time we say anything, so or at least every time I say anything, so I guess it's only fair.
How true that is.
Well, the idea today was to have a discussion of the character of, wait for it, another DS9 episode, Gul Dukat.
Well, Dukat in general, not necessarily while he was Gull.
Well, that's how we usually hear him introduced. I don't even know what his first name is. Did he ever have a first name?
That's a good
In
question.
the books he was screen, but I don't know if that's canon or not, or part of the show notes that the producers had for themselves.
That's the first I've heard of it.
Yeah, I don't think
I
we
watched
ever
the
heard
series
Yeah,
four
it
times.
wasn't mentioned. It wasn't actually mentioned in the series at all. Wasn't actually mentioned on screen, but according to Memory Beta and the books and all that, he was screen Dukat.
Interesting.
Yeah, in fact, in Memory Alpha, they only list him as Dukat, S.G. So they only have his first and middle initials.
Oh, that's right. They showed that on a screen one time, didn't they?
Did they?
I think they did
like
it
on a pad list or something. I don't know.
Yeah, something like that.
Oh, it
Right.
actually
He
says
used
it right
as
here.
his voice commander.
Dukat's initials, SG, as stated in the episode A Time to Stand. Permanent documentation file Dukat SG may in fact be indicating a type of rank as opposed to his initials, such as Supreme General or Station Gull, as he was in command of Terek Nor at the time of this recording.
Station Gull sounds extremely likely as far as the producers are concerned.
Yeah. We don't know, but anyway.
Well, anyhow, wow, that took us far afield. What actually had us do was watch the episode Waltz to prepare for this week's Trekosophy. That one is the real turning point in Dukat's relationship and in Dukat's life, really.
Yeah, they may as well have just called the episode Moral Event Horizon.
Yeah, I mean, it is Dukat's final stop on the road to total Crazyville. You know, he's on a
the point of no return of being a bastard.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, yeah, a crazy bastard. And after this point, Dukat is no longer a redeemable character. You can't come back from this. And the thing is, he doesn't actually do anything all that bad in the episode itself.
He beats the hell out of Cisco.
Yeah, but, you know...
Yeah, but who hasn't wanted to do that?
Q wanted... I mean, even Q wanted to do that, you know? A lot of people wanted to beat the heck out of Cisco. The thing is, it's all dialogue, or well, it's really all monologue for Dukat.
Yeah, it's a very talky episode.
It's all done in language and the characters talking to each other, and that's one of the things that's great about DS9 is it turns the whole. Well, it doesn't always do this effectively, but a lot of the time DS9 can do tell, don't show, and have it actually work. You know, because most of the time the rule is in writing when you can get away with it, show, don't tell, because have more emotional resonance with what they can see. But here, the lack of visuals in Waltz says more, and being able to see a lot of the stuff would have said. Well, anyway, sorry. I guess.
Well, let's kind of look at his arc then, starting from the beginning. First time we actually meet him is in, of course, the first episode of Deep Space Nine, where he. What's his first appearance exactly? And his entrance.
He says he's sitting at Cisco's desk.
At the beginning?
Yeah, that's the first time you see him.
I think he comes into the office and Cisco and him have a bit of a exchange.
Yeah, he says you
you get the distinct impression.
That
Cisco...
used to be my desk just a few days ago or something like that.
Oh, that's right. Yeah, sorry. I got mixed up. Kira was sitting at Cisco's desk. But Dukat gives this big spiel about how he misses the desk. But the idea there was going to be an ever-present threat, you can tell, from the first episode onwards, except that you don't differentiate him from the Cardassian Empire in general in the beginning.
No, I mean, his role doesn't seem all that large to begin with.
He is merely the representative of Cardassia, and he's creepy because Cardassia is creepy at this point. At that point,
he's creepy because Mark Limo knows how to play creepy.
Yes, he's an incredible actor, and I most of my favorite actors are the ones who can portray great villains well, really sell the idea that this is a really evil person. That takes some real acting because you never think of yourself that way. So, assuming you aren't, how can you portray a character who's so extreme?
I do hear that most actors who have portrayed evil characters have said that it's so delicious to play an evil character.
That too.
Well, it does. I mean, who do you like best, Luke Skywalker or Darth Vader? At the end of the day,
the makeup would be tough to deal with. The suit he has to wear.
Not to play, but to watch.
Oh yeah. You'd rather watch a scene with Darth Vader, but part of that is because Mark Hamill really is a terrible actor in physical acting terms. I mean, he is. I mean, even Star Wars fans admit this. But he is an amazing voice actor, especially later in his career. So,
definitely.
But he's a terrible physical actor, or at least he was when the Star Wars movies were.
Well, he was young. You got to give him that.
His first major role, that's true. But still, I mean, for a classic of film to have such bad physical acting is.
But anyway, enough about Star Wars.
Anyway. Okay. So about what was? Oh shoot,
Dukat.
Well, I was trying to think of the actor's name of Dukat, but anyway, Dukat.
Mark Limo.
When does Dukat start to get his own character, as distinct from being generic Cardassian bureaucrat / bad guy?
Well, it sort of starts from the very beginning, really, because there's a point where I think it's Kira identifies him as the former prefect of the station, and not just so much generic Cardassian bad dude, although that's pretty much how he is, but he's the one, and I'm doing the air quotes, he's the one that they don't that they trust the least.
Well, what I mean by that is, when did we start to worry about what Dukat's going to do next, rather than what the Cardassians are going to do next? Because in the first episode, we're worried about what the Cardassians are going to do next.
Well, my point was really the process of that starts at the beginning. I don't.
Oh. Well,
yeah, I'm looking it up right now. I don't see.
But a thing which is so gradual, you can't have anything meaningful said about it. So.
Yeah, exactly. It's very gradual.
He
just makes bit appearances here and there in the first few seasons. It wasn't until like maybe the third or fourth that he really started to show up more.
Yeah, something like civil defense, where
yeah, that's one that I remember very well and really
That's because he was so damn good in it.
Oh, heck yeah.
Shut up. Bajoran workers.
Exactly.
Oh,
And then when he got slammed by his own security system, nothing could have been better.
So you think that was it? That was when we started looking at Dukat specifically rather than the Cardassian Empire as embodied by Dukat.
And there was also shortly after that one was the episode Defiant, which was when the Defiant was stolen by Thomas Riker. And Cisco, in the course of tracking it down, kind of teams up a little bit with Dukat. And during that episode, you actually find out that Dukat has children. And he, just for even the slightest moment, you actually kind of feel sorry for him that he had to be away from his son's birthday.
Yeah.
For that day.
Well, there was the marquee. I think that's where you find out Dukat has his 7 children.
The thing is,
And
when someone lies so much, you're never sure whether when they say something like that, whether they're just saying it to manipulate you. There's a moment in I'm always bringing up Ender's Game. There's a moment in Ender's Shadow by Orson Scott Card where Colonel Graff, who is the character who has always been manipulating all the kids all the time, lying to them so many different ways because he's trying to sort of get them to be the best commanders they can be rather than tell them the truth, you know? And there's a moment at which he tells Bean, Ender's younger friend, what his real name is because he was an orphan. And Bean doesn't really believe it. And after the war is over, Colonel Graff brings it up again, and Bean's like, aren't you just telling me that to motivate me to, win the war? Like, do you think I would lie about something like that? Bean's, and Bean's like, yeah, pretty much. and he's like, oh, it's true. You're struck by how he's like, wow, what have I done to these kids? And that was a great moment because it's like, lie all the time, people won't believe it even. But then again, we got into that in our Garrick episode already. So
there's a lot of stuff you could say about Garrick in that.
Yeah,
in that regard,
we might have
the truth is usually just an excuse for lack of imagination.
We might have to do a Garrick episode again next season.
Oh, I could do a year of Garrick episodes.
When it comes to lying, though, the difference between Garrick and Dukat is Garrick lies all the time because he needs to lie. Dukat isn't actually lying. He's just creating a statement that he really, really wants to be true. So he's twisting reality around to turn a lie into truth.
That's a good point, yeah. Garrick tends not to lie to himself as much as Dukat does.
Yeah, and Dukat really takes lying to himself to such an extreme that it literally drives him insane in the end. Eventually descends into total madness. He's lied to himself so much. I mean, the grief of losing his daughter also has something to do with it, in fairness. But
bringing up the whole daughter issue real quickly, I hate to interrupt, but I'm interrupting. During the whole 3rd and 4th season, practically, I think even the 5th season until closer towards the end, he actually sort of goes towards the side of being a somewhat good guy. Not really a good guy, but not quite as evil as we originally think. And even the creators of the show have said that. They said that he's on an arc that almost brings him towards redemption, but he never gets there, and he eventually falls right back into his old habits.
Yeah.
For example, like the episode Indiscretion when he and Kira go to look for his daughter. There's that wonderful scene where he sits on a barb and sticks out. Very, very humorous scene. they kind of share a great laugh right there. These two people that are blood enemies, or at least, Kira sees him as a blood enemy. Kira pretty much sees him as Hitler, essentially.
I think that's who he really is. Myself. I mean, I think Kira's correct there.
That's how she has always seen him.
Yeah, well, yeah. If we want to talk about Kira, though, if you watch this episode that we're hoping to get to today, Waltz. Another interesting thing about Waltz is the performance by what's her name, the lady who plays Kira Nerys.
Nana Visitor.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, her performance as Dukat's hallucination of Kira, where she gets way more extreme than Kira would ever get.
But I've never seen her laugh that much. I don't think.
Yeah, I mean, that's because she's Dukat's hallucination of Kira, and Dukat has a distorted view of things. But on the other hand, I can kind of see where this horrible, monstrous Kira Nerys is what I think Kira was afraid that she might turn into when in that scene in the bridge in the circle that we talked about last time. I think when she looks at Kai Wynn and sees this horrible, manipulative monster, I'm afraid that that's what she'll turn into if she doesn't stay on the right path. And you see a glimpse of that, of evil Nerys in the Mirror Universe and in this episode. The dark side of Kira Nerys, which I just think is really interesting. Anyway, sorry, I was just going off on a bit of a fan tangent there. That's what the show's for, though, isn't it? Fan tangents.
Try as we might, we just can't stop them.
Right.
Yeah, and so my opinion, I think that the whole, Zia almost represents like his last connection with the real world, his last connection with redemption. And once she's gone, once she is killed, he basically loses it, as we all know, and that basically sends him towards the path of no return. And it wasn't until Waltz that he crossed the line.
It was the one thing left that still humanized him. And the thing is, I've said before, there are no aliens on Star Trek. I mean, not really. There are no alien values on Star Trek. I've said that's been my thesis from day one of this show. It was that there are no alien values on Star Trek. And here again...
That's right, audience. Go back and listen to the very first episode. He did say that.
Yeah. And here again, when I say the last thing that made him human, I do mean it. Because he becomes alien in the sense that he stops being human, but he doesn't become alien in the science fiction sense. He becomes alien in the moral sense. As in completely isolated, cut off, distant. Well, anyways, here's the main event for the evening, what I am thinking of in terms of the philosophy stuff. The question that Waltz raises, and the character of Gul Dukat raises, especially as we head toward the latter seasons of DS9, the question, is it possible to have a person who is truly evil and beyond redemption in an absolute and irrevocable sense? That's the question. Does that really happen, or is that really possible or not?
Well, I hate to bring religion into this discussion once again, but being a Christian myself, you're taught to believe that no one is beyond redemption.
That is what many Christians say. On the other hand, though, I think religion is part of this. It's not all of this, but it's part of this. And the Christian religion in particular deals with this topic. The Bible does say that there is an unforgivable sin.
Suicide.
No, it doesn't say that it's suicide.
No? Where did I hear that? Somewhere someone told me that...
suicide was suicide in the Catholic doctrine is supposed to be unforgivable because once you've done it, you can't get your last rites or anything.
It's in Mark 3 and Matthew 12 and...
Where's my Bible?
Luke 6 And I'll read.
Wow, you can actually even remember the exact chapter and verse.
I have Google in front of me.
Oh, okay. Everyone go to Bible Gateway and look up.
And Jesus says the following in Matthew 12, verse 31. He says, "Wherefore I say unto you, all manner of sin and blasphemy shall be forgiven unto men, but the blasphemy against the Holy Ghost shall not be forgiven unto men. And whosoever speaketh a word against the Son of Man, it shall be forgiven him. But whosoever speaketh against the Holy Ghost, it shall not be forgiven him, neither in this world nor in the world to come." That's the version in Matthew. I want to look at the version in Mark real quick, just for a quick comparison. He says, "Verily I say unto you, all sins shall be forgiven unto the sons of men, and blasphemies wherewith soever they shall blaspheme. But he that shall blaspheme against the Holy Ghost hath never forgiveness, but is in danger of eternal damnation." So
so how does that tie in with Dukat?
The one unforgivable sin in Christianity, according to the Bible, is blasphemy against the Holy Ghost. Now, I might say that I think it is ridiculous to take blasphemy against the Holy Ghost to mean saying you don't believe in the Holy Ghost, or even saying that the Holy Ghost is a bad thing, literally.
I really hope not, because I've done that plenty of times in my life.
Yeah.
Before I came back to Christianity in 2008.
Yes, I don't think that is the case at all. In my opinion, blasphemy against the Holy Ghost is something that can only be done by someone who knows the Holy Ghost in order to know what they really mean. And it's not a word you say. It's more like, let's say your mortal sin is stealing candy bars. This is an example my grandfather uses to give this theory of the unforgivable sin. Let's say your mortal sin is stealing candy bars. And let's say God sends an angel to you to say, "Stop stealing candy bars, or you'll be in danger of hellfire." And you don't listen to the angel, and you keep stealing candy bars anyway. So then Christ appears unto you and says, "Stop stealing the candy bars. That's bad." And you don't listen to Christ. You keep stealing the candy bars anyway. And then God the Father appears unto you and says, "Stop stealing the candy bars." And you're impressed, but you still don't. You still keep stealing the candy bar the next day anyway. Well, then finally, the Holy Ghost appears unto you and says, "This is it. This is the line in the sand. If you do that one more time, there will be no forgiveness. This is your last chance." And when this occurs, you know it of a certainty. You literally cannot doubt it. Cannot, in all honesty, disbelieve that this has occurred. And this does not occur for very many people in real life. But if at that point you still go against what the Holy Ghost has told you, then that's it. That's the end. You don't have any more chances after that. That's the idea of the unforgivable sin. It could be anything that you're told not to do, but it is the blasphemy against the Holy Ghost is the separation of yourself from all that is right and good. The permanent choice to separate yourself from all that is right and good is what it essentially is. And this, very few people ever do this. The odds against encountering it would have to be very, very rare. Assuming that it does happen, the odds against your ever seeing it happen are as rare as a miracle, really. But that is what I think the blasphemy against the Holy Ghost is. And I think that idea of a final last chance at redemption is what, and the rejection of that, and thus the devolution to an inhuman being of pure evil, what C.S. Lewis calls the unman in his book Paralandra, is, I think, what Waltz is getting at.
Okay, well, where is that line that he crosses when he says, "Yes, I should have killed them all"?
I think that's where he finally loses it.
Okay, because actually, if you want to go with that argument, you could say that, well, Cisco kind of helped him along. He kind of prompted him almost to get to that point. If they never had their little arguments, then Dukat would have been just as morally ambiguous as he
Well,
ever been.
you have to remember that Cisco is the emissary of the prophets. I think Cisco is in his role as the emissary of the prophets, and it very much in this episode, in my opinion.
But then where do you get from the point that that at this point Dukat doesn't actually recognize the prophets as an authority?
Does. He's just crazy. You remember what's the next?
Cisco.
Well, you don't. When does he actually adopt the power wraiths?
This is the point at which he really starts to adopt the power wraiths. Is right in Waltz. I think what we're seeing in Waltz is the beginning of the power wraith cult, Dukat's iteration of the power wraith cult.
Well, that is the next time we'll see him.
Yeah, I think that the power wraith cult episode follows directly from Waltz.
I tend to think he quote unquote finds the power wraiths after.
Well, he finds the doctrines
just after
he finds the doctrines of the power wraiths, certainly. But I think that in terms of being influenced by the power wraiths, I think it's right here where that happens, in my opinion.
But when he says I should have killed them all, I mean, it's probably something he's been thinking for a long, long time, just not sort of admitted to himself.
And I don't think that's...
Is it the admittance?
I don't think that's an objection to what I just said. I mean, it's... Oh, well, yeah, it is a final decision or resolution of something that's built for a long, long time, of course. But it's I have to admit I'm doing a bit of what eisegesis rather than mere exegesis here. You know the difference? Eisegesis is reading in what you think it's saying, where exegesis is where you are going strictly from what the author's meant to say. Okay?
Reading it at face value.
I'm doing a little bit. I have to admit that my interpretation here does a little bit of eisegesis. But what I'm saying is this is what I think the authors meant to mean in a moral sense, more than strictly in a literal textual sense. So I hope that...
Uh-huh. So you're going from, for example, what Tolkien would have referred to as allegory rather than applicability, allegory being the intention of the authors imposed on the reader, and applicability being the reader drawing their own parallels and conclusions.
Yeah, I think that's about it. And so it's you could certainly argue with this interpretation and argue alternative ones. I think though that this is a really good one though. In just my opinion.
Bill, we kind of shut you down earlier.
Oh, I'm sorry. I hope I didn't do that. Bill?
I think all of us did.
No, I mean, I'm just listening to the conversation. I can't think of anything to add offhand. I mean, it's fairly straightforward. Dukat, he's evil, but I don't know if I would quite agree with the whole that was his turning point kind of thing. I mean, in a sick and twisted way, it was where he decided he wasn't going to hold back. I tend to think of it as not so much he decided to be evil. It's just he decided to, it's possible it could be argued, he decided to stop giving in to peer pressure at that point.
Yeah, he even says in Covenant that Cisco basically opened his heart and opened his mind, and so he didn't have to hold back any longer.
Right. I mean, up until that point, it wasn't just about... I mean, everything he did, he felt was right up to that point. He thought he was the good guy. But then he's like, well, I need other people to think I'm the good guy, too. So it was all about that spin, that presentation.
That's the way he's always been. He's always wanted... whatever the term is, people to accept him.
So what you're saying basically is that Waltz is the point at which he stops really caring about morals, or stops caring about how people see him?
Yeah, he stops caring about other people. I don't know if I'd say that he decided to flat out be evil. He decided to be true to himself. It was up until then, I want the Bajorans to understand that what I did for their own good. I want the Federation to respect me. I want Cisco to get it. And they all basically tell him, you're nuts. He says, all right, fine. You know what? Screw it. If y'all are going to treat me like that anyway, I'm going to do what I'm going to do. And he stopped trying to play nice.
Well, it sounds like you're sort of bringing out the Nietzschean aspects of post-Waltz Dukat. Yeah, he, like the Joker in The Dark Knight, Dukat is a sort of twisted Nietzschean after Waltz. Instead of conforming to previous standards of right and wrong, he constructs his own. But his own are, because of their total isolation from all past morals, are twisted and inhuman. And that is the anti-Nietzschean interpretation of Nietzsche quite often is, if you do what Nietzsche tells you, which is to construct your own values, which really don't get anything from your previous idea of right and wrong. A critic of Nietzsche would say, you've stepped into the void. You're completely separated from the rest of humanity. But off track though. That would be better for that. Did an episode on the whole Costa-Mudgeon episode. What was the one where was that the one where Dukat goes blind?
Oh no, that's
It's down there, like in tacking into the wind.
so the very end.
That's right at the end. But when he tells Gwen the very last thing that she ought to hear, which is, power is what you want. You ought to just go for what you want. That's the last thing someone like Gwen ought to hear, It's her desire for power that's made her corrupt.
It's an interesting duality, those two, I think, because Wynn is somebody who really honestly believes she's right. And she thinks she's a good guy. She never questions her, but she's kind of doing it backwards. Instead of saying, I'm right, so I should do the right thing, she's whatever I do is the right thing. It's because I can't do wrong, not I should try to do right. Whereas Dukat is, I'm going to do, he does it in reverse. It's like the action gets him what he wants, and then he has to come up with a way to try to say that what he wants is the right thing. Whereas she's like, everything I want is the right thing, so it's got to be whatever I decide to do is a good thing to do. It's a different kind of mindset.
Yeah. Well, I think he takes her over to more to his way of thinking in that right at the end.
Didn't she end up pushing him off the cliff?
Yeah, but I mean in the days leading up to that.
No.
Oh, I thought she did.
He actually killed her, but spoilers. But she was the one who told Cisco that about his weak point was the book.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
And she indicated his Achilles heel, so to speak.
Throw the book into the fire. She lifted it up over her head, and then boom, the book disappeared, and it was in Dukat's hand. And he said, "Are you still here?" Burned her up.
Right, that's what it is.
Yeah. There's a whole bunch of interesting.
I knew it was something.
There's a whole bunch of interesting stuff about the concept.
It happened 15 years ago.
There's a whole bunch of interesting stuff about the concept of priesthood in some of those late episodes. With the interactions between Dukat and Kai Wynn, when Wynn is the Kai, say quite a bit about the concept of priesthood, especially the Catholic concept. Because in order to be a Catholic, you have to believe that the priesthood was handed down from St. Peter in the first century in an unbroken line of apostolic succession to the present day, so that when you meet a Catholic priest today, assuming that the Catholic claim to priesthood is correct, it means that you are being ministered to basically by Jesus Christ, because Christ gave the keys of his ministry to Peter, who gave the keys of the ministry to whoever Peter ordained, who ordained the next guy, who ordained the next guy, who ordained the next guy, who ordained so on and so on, straight to any Catholic priest that you meet today. That is, if the Catholic Church's claim is correct, then the situation is as I have just described, where Protestant churches don't make a claim like that. But the Catholic churches do. And the Latter-day Saint churches that I'm a part of claim that the authority of the Catholic Church was lost due to a great deal of abuse in the early centuries, not the first century, but in the centuries that followed, there was a great deal of abuse, and so the authority of the priesthood was lost, and according to Latter-day Saintism, was restored in the 19th century. But according to the Catholic view, priesthood can be transmitted through extremely corrupt people and still be just as legitimate. That's how they managed to get their priesthood transmitted through the Dark Ages and all the horrible things that have happened in their history. And even though these various popes may have been completely corrupt morally and doctrinally, they would still have received and passed on the apostolic succession, according to the Catholic Church. So that is why the Costomotion can only be read by the Chi. Dukat cannot read it because he does not have the priesthood. So he needs the Chi's permission because of the authority of her priesthood in order to do it. And trying to go around that just doesn't work. So even though she's totally corrupt, her priesthood still works. That's what the episode says, which I thought was very Catholic. Very Catholic perspective on priesthood in those episodes.
That's interesting. Also, because Kai Wen, as the head priest, being the only one who can essentially read this evil book, this the Costomosion evil book. So it's only because she becomes corrupt that the book can be read. It's only after the head honcho becomes corrupt.
Well, that's not quite it, because you remember that Christ in the New Testament gives to his priesthood the power to command demons.
We're getting a little off topic here.
I think that's what DS9 is talking about here, though. I mean, it's in the show. That's one of the things about the priesthood is they have they're supposed to have the authority to command demons and cast out demons. So the ability to read the evil book is, I think, that's what it's about.
And we can certainly delve into that matter further when we have an episode centered on Kai Wen
and the Pa Wraiths
and the Pa Wraiths and all that good stuff. But as it is, I'm afraid we're running short on time. So any final thoughts on Dukat/Waltz?
Well, I was hoping that one or more of you would probably try to take me on the whole. Is it possible to have an irredeemable person?
I was thinking irredeemable. Irredeemable according to whom? Because there's a very interesting question of what is Dukat's, I guess, even legal guilt on this, and does the Federation have jurisdiction to declare him, I guess, innocent or guilty in that sense? But also, who could forgive Dukat if he were forgivable? Yeah.
Well, the question for an atheist here, or someone who's just not a Christian, I guess, so it would extend to other religions as well, who don't have the same concept of a supernatural redemption that Christianity has, would be, is it possible to have a person who has no possible route to becoming a good person ever again?
Well, you could even bring the religion into it and say, would it be possible for the prophets to forgive Dukat?
Oh, yeah, that's true. But what I'm saying is, though, that's still a question that would only be of interest to someone who is religious themselves, I think, where I'm trying to bring up something that applies even for the irreligious among us.
So you're looking at it from an atheistic point of view. So I was thinking, the Bajorans, for example, if, for instance, let's take Kara because she was in his vision as kind of the unforgiving one.
Yeah.
Let's take Kara as an example. If Kara were to forgive Dukat, she would be doing it, I think, not for Dukat's sake, really, but for her own, in a sense. And if the sorry, I'm not with it today.
That's right.
One thing, though, is that what I'm looking for here is something that's a lot more personal. It's the idea that there is such a thing as really being a good person or a bad person, not in the judgment of any particular judge, like whether it's God or another person or a government, but that there actually is such a thing as really being a good person or a bad person. There's such a thing as a correct or incorrect judgment that any of these various institutions could take. It does sound like a more transcendent sort of idea of goodness, but it doesn't necessarily depend on the idea of God at all. You can be an atheist and still believe that there's such a thing as a really good person and a really bad person without necessarily bringing God into it. There are a great many atheists who do that. And so what I'm saying is it possible that you can have a bad person who is so bad that there's no way they could ever become a good person ever again?
An atheist might point not even to Waltz as his being a bad person, but morally to the point at which he actually was responsible for the deaths of all those Bajorans. They would possibly point to his actions as being more culpable than his thoughts, in a sense.
Okay.
I don't know if that's what you're getting at.
I'm not sure.
He's saying just saying it isn't enough. He would have to actually do the action of killing all the Bajorans before he became irredeemable.
Well, he did in the story.
He didn't kill all of them.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Never mind. You're saying something I misunderstood. You're right. He didn't actually kill all the Bajorans. Yeah. So you're saying that according to an atheist,
he didn't actually cross that line.
Okay, but if he had, would that make him an irredeemable person? I mean, what in the way I've defined irredeemable, which is a non-religious way of defining it.
According to the TV tropes, it is.
Yeah.
As far as the idea of anybody being truly irredeemable goes, remember, this is Star Trek, and the one thing we keep learning is there's no such thing as a no-win scenario.
Well, that's what Kirk says.
And then
that's
Kirk
what a great
goes ahead
many
and cheats.
That's what a great many Christians say. They say what Chris said. I mean, I think most Christians would agree with Chris that there really is no such thing as a person who can't be forgiven, or what? How did you say it, Chris?
There's no such thing as an irredeemable person.
Ah, yes, that is what
or soul.
That is what most Christians believe. And well, I gave a biblical argument for why that might not be the case, but there might be alternative interpretations or whatnot to defend the idea. But one thing, though, is that if I'm correct that there is such a thing as an irredeemable person, it seems to follow logically from that position that there is no such thing as a truly unconditional love. Because premise one, there are irredeemable people, and B, an irredeemable person is not lovable. Therefore, there is no unconditional love, because all love that is truly possible would have to be on condition of the object being redeemable.
And we'll discuss all that in our next episode on love.
Well, yeah. Well, anyway, So that's a rather radical argument of mine in my own philosophy that I thought would say, accepting this idea of an irredeemable person has some rather serious consequences. That's the point I wanted to make, and it doesn't need to go much further than that. But I was just pointing out that my position goes very radical, very fast.
Well, we could definitely keep talking about this till the cows come home, but oh, look, they're coming home right now.
Yeah.
So I'm afraid we're going to have to cut it off here. Bill, we've already done an outro for us. You want to do something else here?
Sure. And welcome to Trekosophy, the Star Trek philosophy podcast. Like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter, check us out at trekosophy.com, download us in the iTunes store. Where else are we these days, Chris?
YouTube. We're on YouTube.
We are on YouTube, that's
Yes.
right. We are on YouTube now. Email us your questions, comments, complaints, concerns, and confusion at trekosophy@gmail.com. And remember, folks, being evil is always a bad thing.
By definition.
Unless it's evil towards the Cardassians.
Oh, then it's okay.
Yeah.
Cardies.
Bill Allen.
Hey, can you hear me?
I can.
Yeah, I just started to try connecting like an hour ago and let it run. You scared the crap out of me. I'm playing Minecraft and somebody says, Bill Allen.
I seem to be having tremendous difficulty with my lifestyle.
People who don't like DS9 are probably going to hate Trekosophy because we spend so much time on DS9.
Yeah, I'm a retro vintage kind of dude.
So when in time of war the lost falls silent, wasn't that the meaning of it?
Yeah, Cicero.
I always found it interesting that Latin words can be put in any order and still mean the same thing. Doesn't
Yes.
make sense to me, but apparently.
Well, the word endings denote their place on the sentence. So leges is the subject, because if it was the object, it would be it would be leg. Well, lex it would be legem if it was
Okay.
law.
Okay,
Singular.
we got a
Object.
Latin expert here. All right.
See, what did I tell you? The one person in the group that makes the rest of us look like we have no clue what we're talking about.
It's exactly true.
She's that good. She speaks like, what, 5 languages?
3.
Including Klingon? Well, 3 plus Klingon, so that's 4, right?
It might be a logical impossibility, but I'm gonna zarking well try.
The working title of the episode was simply Untitled Bashir. If people don't like DS9, screw them.